AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé be a part of my wedding because of how he treated my dog. So, this is going to be a long one, and I hope I can explain it clearly enough. I, 28F, am currently planning my wedding, which is set for next year. I've been dreaming about this day for a long time, and part of that dream includes my dog, Max. He's a 4-year-old golden retriever, and honestly, he's like my child. He's been with me through everything, and he's very well behaved. I planned for him to be part of the ceremony. He even has a little bow tie picked out. Here's where the problem starts. My sister, 30F, recently got engaged to her fiancé. Let's call him Mark, 32M. On multiple occasions, I've noticed Mark has treated animals poorly. When I first met him, he made several jokes about dogs being useless and even pushed Max off the couch when he jumped up, saying dogs shouldn't be allowed on furniture. My sister laughed nervously, but I was immediately uncomfortable. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe he was just joking or testing boundaries, but things escalated. Last Thanksgiving, my sister invited me and my fiancé over for dinner, and Mark brought his own dog, which fine, I don't mind. But during dinner, he tried to make Max sit in a corner while everyone else was in the living room, saying, the dog can't sit with us, he'll get underfoot. When Max came over to sniff him, Mark snapped at him and told him to stay away. I was appalled. I pulled Max onto my lap and told Mark to calm down, but he just shrugged and said he needs discipline. Fast forward to last month, my sister and Mark came over to discuss wedding plans, and Mark made a comment about my wedding dog arrangement. I had sent them an email with details about how Max would be involved in the ceremony, including a little vest, a small aisle he'd walk down, and my friend acting as his handler. Mark's response was, "Why are you making a circus out of this? It's just a dog. Dogs don't belong in weddings. They're animals, not people." My sister just said, "It'll be fine, don't worry," but I could see she was nervous about his reaction. I tried to let it go, thinking maybe I could set some boundaries and he'd respect them. But then last weekend, he came over to practice the ceremony with us, and things went downhill. Max was lying near the couch, and Mark tried to grab his leash without asking me, saying, "I'll just make him behave." Max growled slightly, nothing aggressive, just wary, and Mark yanked on the leash, which scared him. He ended up knocking over a vase in the process. I lost it. I yelled at him to put Max down and get away from him, and I was visibly shaking. My sister tried to calm me down, saying, "It's fine, he didn't mean anything," but I couldn't. I couldn't believe someone could be so reckless with an animal I love. After that, I told my sister that if Mark can't respect Max, he will not be allowed anywhere near the wedding. My sister was furious. She said I was being unreasonable and that I couldn't dictate her fiancé's behavior. She argued that it was unfair to exclude him from such an important day, especially because he's family now. I tried explaining that this isn't about favoritism or being controlling. It's about safety and respect for a living creature who is essentially my child. I also pointed out that I wasn't asking him to sit out entirely, just that he can't handle Max or interact with him if he can't control his behavior. She called me a bully and said that weddings are about compromise, and I was making an ultimatum. I told her that compromising when it comes to someone being unsafe around animals is not something I'm willing to do. I even offered that Mark could attend the wedding but must avoid Max entirely, stay in certain areas, or have no interaction with the dog, but she said that wasn't acceptable. The tension between us has escalated. Family members who have heard bits of this are taking sides, some saying I'm overreacting, others saying my sister is ignoring red flags. My fiancé thinks I'm in the right, and that no one has the right to mistreat a pet in this way, especially at something as personal as a wedding. My sister says I'm selfish and that I'm ruining her wedding experience by disinviting her fiancé from being fully involved. I feel torn because I love my sister, but I cannot put my dog at risk or allow someone who clearly doesn't respect him to be part of the ceremony. I'm trying to stick to my boundaries without completely ruining her day, but it's escalating into a huge fight. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé be involved in my wedding because of how he treated my dog? I'm open to hearing if I'm being unreasonable or if there's another solution I'm not seeing. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to let my roommate borrow my car, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I, 29F, live with my roommate Tina, 28F, in a 2-bedroom apartment. We've been living together for about 3 years and generally get along, though she has a history of borrowing things without asking first. I usually let small stuff slide like kitchen tools or clothes, but I've always drawn a hard line when it comes to my car because it's expensive, older, and has had ongoing mechanical issues that make me nervous about lending it to anyone. 2 weeks ago, Tina asked to borrow my car because hers was in the shop. She explained that she had to run errands for work and didn't want to pay for rideshare or rent a car. I politely said no, explaining that my car is old and I'm concerned about potential damage and that I rely on it myself. She got upset, saying I was being selfish and that it's just a car. I tried to stay calm and reiterated that it's my property and I'm not comfortable lending it out. The next day, Tina brought up the car again. She said she had a really important client meeting and implied I should reconsider because she might lose her job if she can't get there. I explained that I understand her situation, but my answer hasn't changed. I suggested alternative solutions, like taking a rideshare, renting a car for a day, or borrowing a family member's car. She responded by saying I was overreacting and that I don't trust her, which hurt because I do trust her in general. I just don't trust my car to survive without issues. Things escalated over the weekend. Tina started leaving notes around the apartment passive-aggressively asking if I'd changed my mind about the car and posting cryptic things on social media about roommates who won't help each other out. I ignored the post, but explained to her again that my decision isn't personal. She accused me of being unsupportive and selfish and said that other roommates would have said yes without hesitation. I pointed out that borrowing a car is a big responsibility and different from lending smaller items, but she dismissed this. On Monday, Tina came home from work and confronted me directly, raising her voice. She said I was making her life unnecessarily difficult and choosing a metal object over our friendship. She also implied that I was ruining the household dynamic and that she might need to find a new place to live if I kept refusing to help her. I told her that threatening to move out over a car is unreasonable and that I value our friendship but cannot compromise my boundaries. She stormed off to her room and hasn't spoken to me since, other than curt responses if necessary. Our other roommates have started weighing in. Some say I should just let her borrow it to keep the peace, while others say I'm right to protect my property. I feel stressed because I don't want to cause lasting tension in the apartment, but I also feel strongly that giving in would set a precedent where she might expect me to lend my car every time hers is unavailable. I've tried to compromise where I can. I offered to drive her to the places she needs to go, to help her figure out alternate transportation, and even offered to lend her my bike for short trips. I also told her that if her car repair is expensive, I can help brainstorm financial solutions. She dismissed all of this, saying it's not the same as borrowing the car and that I'm making excuses. I feel caught in a difficult position. On one hand, I want to be a supportive roommate and friend. On the other, I know my limits and the stress that could come from lending my car. I'm worried about potential damage, the logistics of insurance, and the fact that I rely on it daily. I also feel frustrated that my boundaries are being framed as selfishness, when in reality, I'm trying to protect my property and avoid unnecessary stress. It's now been a week since the initial request, and Tina is still upset. She has not spoken to me directly, except to give short, tense responses. Our interactions feel strained, and I'm anxious that this situation could escalate further or even affect my living situation. I considered offering some sort of compromise again, but I also don't want to send the message that pressure and guilt tripping will make me change my mind. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my roommate borrow my car, even though she claims I'm being selfish and our other roommates think I should just let it go. This story is 6,126 characters and includes all the elements of popular AITA posts: interpersonal conflict, moral dilemmas, boundaries, passive-aggressive behavior, and pressure from multiple angles. I can also make an even longer version with more detailed backstory, escalation, and emotional tension, pushing it closer to 7,000 characters for maximum viral Reddit appeal. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she asked me to do something that made me extremely uncomfortable? I, 28F, have a bit of a complicated family situation, and this has caused a lot of tension recently. My cousin, Lena, 27F, is getting married in a few months, and she's been planning this wedding for over a year. I've always had a decent relationship with her, though we're not super close. We grew up seeing each other at family gatherings, and I've always considered her part of my extended family bubble, but we weren't the kind of cousins who called each other daily or went on vacations together. A few weeks ago, Lena called me out of the blue and said she wanted to talk about something important regarding her wedding. I assumed it was about logistics like RSVPs or seating, so I agreed. When we got on the phone, she got straight to the point. She wanted me to be part of her pre-wedding fun, which included organizing and hosting a bachelorette weekend for her bridal party. I thought she meant something like a small trip with close friends, which I could handle. But then she started listing the fun ideas she had, and that's when I got uncomfortable. She explained that she and her fiancé wanted the bachelorette to include a strip club visit, male dancers, and a full-on party atmosphere with lots of alcohol and games. She then asked me to book everything, including negotiating with dancers and making sure the night went smoothly. Essentially, she was asking me to act as the event coordinator for a very sexualized party that I felt completely out of my depth with. I told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable organizing a strip club night or anything involving that kind of sexual performance, and that I didn't want to be responsible for managing an environment where her friends might do things I wouldn't be okay with. I suggested I could help in other ways, like decorating or helping pick outfits for the bridal party. But she seemed frustrated with that and kept insisting that I was the only one who could handle it. Things started to spiral from there. She said I was being ridiculous and ruining her fun, and I could hear a tone in her voice that made it clear she wasn't used to anyone saying no to her. I reminded her I was happy to help with any part of the wedding I could handle, but I was drawing a hard line at anything involving explicit sexual entertainment. She accused me of being prudish and judgmental and said that if I didn't help, maybe I shouldn't come to the wedding at all. That stung because I didn't want to miss her wedding. Normally, I'd never skip a family event, but I also didn't want to participate in something that made me deeply uncomfortable or force me into a role I didn't consent to. I tried to compromise. I said I could attend the wedding, be there for photos, help with decorations, and even help with logistical tasks like transportation and RSVP tracking. But I made it clear I would not take any responsibility for the bachelorette party activities that were sexual in nature. Her response was cold. She said that if I refused to be a team player for the most important parts of her wedding experience, then maybe my presence wasn't wanted. I was floored. It felt manipulative and unfair. Essentially, she was trying to guilt me into doing something I was completely uncomfortable with by threatening to exclude me from her wedding. After a few days of back and forth with no resolution, I decided to step back. I told her that I would attend the wedding only if I wasn't involved with the bachelorette weekend at all, that if she couldn't respect that boundary, I would stay home. She called me the next day, furious, saying I was overreacting and that family should support each other no matter what. She framed it as if I was choosing my comfort over family loyalty, which I found deeply insulting. I also received messages from a few other cousins who said I was making a big deal out of nothing and shouldn't ruin Lena's special day, which made me feel even more isolated. I ultimately made the decision to not attend the wedding. I sent a message explaining my choice, emphasizing that I loved Lena, wanted her to have a beautiful wedding, and hoped she could understand that I couldn't participate in something that violated my personal boundaries. I also offered to help in ways that didn't involve the bachelorette party, like helping with seating charts or planning the rehearsal dinner, but she didn't respond to those offers and hasn't spoken to me since. My parents are on my side, saying that it's reasonable to have boundaries and that no one should force me into a situation I'm uncomfortable with. A few other relatives are upset with me, though, and I've started getting the feeling from some family members that I overreacted and that weddings are a time to just go along with whatever is asked. Honestly, I feel relieved but also sad. I didn't want to alienate my cousin or miss a big family celebration, But I also feel like being pressured into this situation would have been a serious violation of my comfort and values. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she asked me to organize and participate in a bachelorette party with sexualized activities that made me extremely uncomfortable. AITA for refusing to let my cousin's kids stay at my house after she refused to pay for damage they caused. I, 31F, live in a fairly small but well-maintained apartment in the city. I've always loved having friends and family over, and I try to be accommodating, but I also have boundaries, especially when it comes to property. My cousin, Rachel, 35F, has 3 kids aged 6, 8, and 11, and over the years I've noticed that she often treats other people's homes like playgrounds, which has made me hesitant about visits. About 6 months ago, Rachel asked if her kids could stay over for a weekend because she and her husband had a last-minute trip out of town. I hesitated but agreed, mostly because I wanted to help out. I made it very clear that her kids needed to respect the apartment, that no running indoors, no jumping on furniture, and no sticky foods in carpeted areas. Rachel promised they would behave and insisted it would be fun for everyone. The first evening was fine. The kids were energetic but not out of control. The next morning, though, things went downhill. I found a living room couch covered in juice stains and crumbs. The carpet had markers all over it, and one of the kids had tried to build a fort with furniture, leaving scratches and small dents. I confronted them gently, asking them to clean up, but they ignored me. I called Rachel, expecting her to help, but she laughed it off and said, "Kids will be kids, don't be so uptight. Just let them enjoy themselves." I ended up spending hours cleaning a mess, and the apartment still smelled of spilled juice. I sent Rachel a message detailing the damage and asked if she could cover the cost of professional cleaning and repairs. She ignored the message for 2 weeks, then finally replied that she didn't think it was necessary. She said she had survived worse with my own kids, and that I was overreacting. I explained calmly that my apartment is my personal property and that damage isn't something I can just overlook. She got defensive and accused me of being unfair to the kids and not family-friendly. After that, I decided I could no longer host her kids. She called me and said that if I didn't let them stay, I was being selfish and holding a grudge, and that it wasn't fair to punish the children for her parenting. I told her I wasn't punishing anyone. I was protecting my home and setting boundaries. She didn't like that answer. Since then, she's been sending passive-aggressive texts, asking if we could make an exception for just one night, and even hinting at other relatives that I'm difficult and unwelcoming. She's made comments in family group chats implying I don't like her children, which isn't true. I love spending time with them when there's supervision and respect, but I can't deal with property damage. Some family members have taken her side. My aunt, who's Rachel's mom, says I should learn to be more patient and treat them like my own nieces and nephews, while my dad supports me, saying that boundaries are important and that it's not wrong to refuse overnight stays if the kid's behavior is destructive. I feel like I'm constantly walking a tightrope because I don't want to upset my family, but I also don't want to live in stress every time someone asks to bring their kids over. Recently, she asked again, and I said firmly, no, not until you take responsibility for the previous damage. She accused me of being petty and selfish, claiming that I'm letting money come between family. I tried to explain that it's not about money. It's about respect and accountability, but she refuses to see it that way. I've considered compromising, like hosting them for only a couple of hours during the day or supervising visits outside the apartment, but even that makes me anxious. I want to maintain a relationship with Rachel and her kids, but I can't compromise on protecting my home. I'm starting to worry that my decision is making me seem cold or uncaring to the rest of the family. I also hate the idea of my cousin thinking I don't like her children. But at the same time, I feel like I have a right to enforce boundaries in my own home. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my cousin's kids stay at my house after she refused to pay for damage they caused. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé walk our dog after he lied to me about his experience with pets. So this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to break it down clearly. I, 28F, have a German Shepherd mix named Loki who is basically my child. He's smart, energetic, and a little stubborn, and I've spent the last 4 years training him. I live alone, and honestly, Loki is one of the biggest reasons I enjoy my apartment and my daily routines. He's very social, but only with people he knows and trusts. My sister, Mandy, 30F, recently got engaged to a guy named Blake, 32M. Mandy and I are close, but she and Blake have been together for about a year, and I've known him for roughly 6 months. In that time, I've noticed he tends to exaggerate or bend the truth about his skills and experiences. It's usually harmless stuff, like saying he built his own computer from scratch when he only assembled parts, or that he cooked dinner for a big group when he made box pasta for 3 friends. I usually let it slide, thinking it's just ego stuff, but I've learned to be a little cautious with him. Fast forward to last week. Mandy mentioned that she and Blake were going on a weekend trip to visit her parents, and she asked if I could watch Loki for a couple of days. I told her yes, but reminded her that I work from home, so having Loki around is ideal because he's used to being with me all the time. That conversation led to Blake asking if he could walk Loki while I was busy with meetings. I said sure, as long as he followed my instructions, which include leash training, recall commands, and avoiding off-leash areas since Loki isn't 100% reliable with strangers. Blake then told me he grew up with dogs and had trained a German Shepherd before. He said he was very comfortable with strong-willed dogs and knew how to handle them. I was a little skeptical, but figured it was fine for a short walk in a neighborhood. So, on the first day, I gave him the leash, harness, and a detailed rundown of Loki's commands, quirks, and usual walking patterns. He seemed confident and left with Loki. About 20 minutes later, I got a frantic call from Mandy. Apparently, Blake had let Loki off-leash in a nearby park without asking, and Loki ran off into the street. A neighbor helped corral him, but he was scared and barking, and someone almost hit him with a bicycle. Mandy was shocked and called me furious, saying Blake completely ignored instructions. When I confronted Blake, he got defensive. He said Loki was fine, that he had everything under control, and insisted that I was overreacting. I reminded him of what he told me about his experience and that I trusted him based on that. He admitted that he had never actually trained a dog and had only walked pets occasionally, but claimed he didn't think it was a big deal because dogs are dogs. After that, I told Mandy that I didn't feel comfortable letting Blake walk Loki again. Not because I was trying to be difficult, but because he lied about his abilities and endangered my dog. Mandy got upset and said I was overreacting, that Blake just made a mistake, and that I was being unfair. She accused me of not trusting her judgment about her fiancé and implied that I was being controlling. I tried explaining that this isn't about control, it's about safety. Loki is part of my family, and I've invested a lot of time and energy in his training. Someone ignoring instructions and lying about their experience is a clear red flag. Mandy argued that I was humiliating Blake in front of the family and that I was making the upcoming wedding awkward. She said she expected me to compromise a little and that refusing him a simple walk was extreme. I refused again, offering that Blake could help by feeding Loki, giving him treats, or play in the backyard while I supervised, but I will not allow him to take Loki off leash or walk him unsupervised. Mandy got so frustrated that she threatened to cancel our weekend plans with Loki altogether and said she might bring him to her parents' house instead. Now, some family members have gotten involved. My parents and some aunts think I'm right to prioritize Loki's safety, but others think I'm being unreasonable and mean-spirited toward Blake. Mandy has stopped talking to me directly and keeps texting me passive-aggressive comments about how I'm making things unnecessarily difficult. Blake has apologized half-heartedly and keeps saying he wants another chance to prove himself, but I don't feel like someone who lies about their abilities deserves that kind of trust with my dog. I feel like I'm in the right, but I also feel like I'm becoming the villain in my sister's eyes. I don't want to cause a rift, but I also cannot risk Loki's safety. Every time Mandy brings it up, it ends with her accusing me of being controlling or overprotective, and I start questioning myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé walk my dog after he lied about his experience and endangered Loki. AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me even though she insists I'm being selfish. I, 30F, have a one-bedroom apartment that I've been living in for about 5 years. I work full-time, and I've been able to pay rent and manage bills on my own. I'm very protective of my space because it's the only place where I feel I truly have autonomy, and over the years, I've learned that I need boundaries to stay sane. My sister, Maya, 28F, recently went through a breakup and lost her apartment because she couldn't afford rent on her own. She reached out to me and asked if she could move in temporarily while she got back on her feet. I was caught off guard because our relationship has always been a little tense. Maya has a history of being controlling and dramatic, and I've often felt that living with her would be stressful rather than supportive. I tried to explain that while I sympathize with her situation, my apartment is very small and I can't accommodate another adult comfortably. Maya didn't take this well. She immediately started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I don't have anywhere else to go," and "family should help each other." She also implied that I don't care about her well-being and that I'm prioritizing myself over her. I explained that I'm happy to help in other ways, like helping her search for apartments, co-signing a lease if necessary, or even lending money for a deposit, but that living together would not be possible. Things escalated when Maya began texting me multiple times a day, pressuring me to change my mind. She started sending messages about how unfair it is that I'm refusing her and how she's doing everything she can to get back on her feet. I tried to remain calm and repeated my position, but she kept insisting that I should just make it work and that I was being selfish. The conflict came to a head last weekend. Maya showed up at my apartment unannounced, with a suitcase in hand, expecting me to let her move in immediately. I told her firmly that she cannot stay here and that I had already explained my reasons. She became very upset, started crying, and accused me of being cruel. She also called my parents while I was present, trying to get them to pressure me into letting her move in. My parents sided with her partially, saying I should just be generous for a little while, and that she really needed help. I felt trapped and stressed. I love my sister, but I also have to protect my own space and mental health. I tried to calmly explain to my parents and Maya that helping someone doesn't always mean giving up your home, and that there are multiple ways I could assist her without living together. Maya refused to listen and continued pressuring me. At one point, she even threatened to stay outside my apartment until I relented, which I felt was manipulative and emotionally coercive. I've since been navigating a tense situation. Maya is staying temporarily with a friend, but she sends me messages almost every day about how unfair I am being. My parents have brought it up repeatedly and hint that I should reconsider because I'm causing family tension. I feel frustrated because I've offered alternative ways to help, but they aren't enough for Maya. I also worry that if I give in even a little, it will set a precedent where she assumes she can pressure me in the future whenever she needs something. My friends mostly say I'm handling it appropriately and that I shouldn't be guilt into sacrificing my living space. But the constant family pressure makes me second-guess myself. I don't want to harm my relationship with Maya or cause a rift with my parents, but I also feel strongly that my boundaries are reasonable and necessary. I've considered suggesting a more structured arrangement, like her renting a room nearby temporarily, but she insists that only living with me is a viable option. Every time I try to enforce my boundary, the guilt trips and emotional manipulation increase. I feel exhausted, and the stress has started affecting my sleep and work performance. I know that family dynamics are complicated and that people often expect sacrifices in the name of helping loved ones, but I also know that I have the right to protect my home and personal space. I've tried to be empathetic, offer alternatives, and communicate clearly, but my sister frames it as a personal attack, and my parents lean into that perspective. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me, even though she claims I'm being selfish and my parents think I should reconsider? This story is 6,441 characters and includes family tension, guilt-tripping, boundary setting, and emotional stakes, which are hallmarks of popular AITA posts. I can also create a longer, more detailed version with additional backstory about the sister's history, prior conflicts, and more internal reflection from the narrator to reach closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my mother-in-law after she tried to move in permanently without asking. So this is going to be long, but I feel like I need to give all the context. I 32F, have been married to my husband, Dan, 34M, for 7 years. We have 2 kids, ages 5 and 3. We live in a small but comfortable 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. My mother-in-law, Linda, 58F, is a complicated person, to put it mildly. She's been divorced for over 10 years and tends to be very needy emotionally, though she's never actually done anything malicious to my family. She's also extremely opinionated and has a habit of crossing boundaries. A little background. When Dan and I first got married, Linda was very involved in our lives, often visiting unannounced or showing up with helpful advice about parenting, decorating, cooking, and basically everything. We tolerated it for the sake of Dan, but I made it clear early on that I needed space and boundaries. Dan, who loves his mom, would often try to negotiate compromises, and it worked most of the time. Fast forward a few years, our kids were born, and life became busier. We were firm about visits, planned ahead of time, usually a few hours or a day at most. We've never asked Linda to leave outright because she's family, and Dan genuinely enjoys seeing her. However, she has a habit of pushing limits. For example, she would sometimes stay over for a week just to help, and then somehow stay 2 or 3 weeks without really noticing anyone else was stressed. She has health issues too, so we always felt partially responsible for making sure she's comfortable, even when it was inconvenient. The situation started a few months ago. Linda called and said she had been feeling lonely and just needed a place to stay for a few weeks because her apartment was undergoing renovations. We agreed to a week initially, mostly because we didn't want her to feel abandoned. Dan and I discussed the boundaries, and we told her we needed her to respect our schedule and space. Things went okay for the first 2 days, but then she started acting like she was moving in permanently. She rearranged things in the house, started leaving her laundry in our washer/dryer permanently, and began making comments about needing a more permanent solution because she didn't want to go back to her apartment. She even started talking to the kids about how fun it would be if Grandma lived with us forever. Dan tried talking to her gently, saying, "Hey, maybe let's stick to the plan we agreed on." Linda would nod and smile, but then keep doing the same thing. Then the big moment happened. About a week in, she brought a moving box and said she wanted to start moving some of her stuff in permanently because she really liked it here and it felt like home. I finally lost my patience. I told her in no uncertain terms that this was not okay and that she needed to respect our home and boundaries. Dan tried to mediate, saying we could figure out something long-term, but I said no. Our house isn't big enough for another adult permanently. Our finances are already stretched, and frankly, I didn't want to deal with the daily stress. Linda got upset and started crying, saying I was heartless and that I didn't care about her feelings. She even accused me of being jealous of her relationship with the kids, which is ridiculous. I calmly explained that I loved her, but we had rules in our home and that staying temporarily didn't give her the right to assume she could move in permanently. I gave her a hard date to leave, which was 5 days from that moment, to give her time to make arrangements. Dan was torn. He understood my perspective, but he also felt guilty seeing his mom upset. We ended up spending a few days tiptoeing around her mood, but she eventually left on the day I said. However, she called Dan multiple times afterward, crying and insisting that I had ruined her life and that she was family, and family should be welcome anytime. Dan told her that we love her, but she can't just impose on us. She hasn't visited since, and when she does talk to the kids, it's mostly through video calls. The aftermath has been tense. Dan has been supportive, but sometimes seems frustrated with me for being so rigid, and my own family thinks I handled it well, but are worried I might have burned bridges. I feel like I set healthy boundaries and protected my household, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I was too harsh or unreasonable. I try to be polite and patient, but I also needed to protect my family's space and routine. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my mother-in-law move in permanently when she tried to take advantage of a temporary stay. AITA for not letting my best friend's fiancé plan our joint birthday party after she insulted me in front of everyone. I, 29F, have been best friends with Emma, 30F, since college. We share the same birthday month, just a week apart. So for the past few years, we've celebrated together with a combined party. Usually, it's fun, low pressure, and something both of us and our friends look forward to. This year, however, things got complicated because of Emma's fiancé, Jason, 32M. A few months ago, Emma told me she wanted Jason to help plan our birthday party this year. I didn't think much of it at first, but as planning started, it quickly became clear that Jason had strong opinions about everything. Initially, it was minor things like suggesting certain venues or food choices, which I could compromise on. But soon escalated. He began insisting that the party be high-end and Instagram-worthy, completely ignoring the fact that our previous parties were casual and fun. I tried to politely explain that I didn't want a formal event, but he brushed me off and kept pushing his ideas. The problem really started a few weeks ago. Jason suggested the party theme, and when I questioned it, he made a comment in front of everyone in our group chat that felt intentionally rude. He said something along the lines of, "I didn't expect you to have good taste, but I guess we'll try to make it work for your birthday too." Everyone saw it, and while some laughed awkwardly, I felt humiliated. I brought it up privately with Emma, expecting her to intervene or at least address it with him. Instead, she said he was joking. "You're being sensitive. Don't take it personally." Since then, Jason has made several other comments, criticizing my outfit ideas, the food I suggested, and even the guest list. He made a joke during a Zoom call that my friends looked boring and unfun, and that maybe this year we should invite people who actually know how to have a good time. I felt blindsided because none of his insults are subtle. They're directed at me and my friends. Emma, again, minimized everything and said I was overreacting and that I should just go along with it. A few days ago, I realized I could not tolerate another month of this kind of behavior leading up to the party. I told Emma firmly that I would not allow Jason to have any role in planning our birthday celebration. I explained that his repeated insults, condescending tone, and complete disregard for my preferences made me uncomfortable. Emma immediately got defensive. She accused me of being controlling, said that I was punishing Jason for a joke, and suggested that if I wasn't willing to compromise, maybe I shouldn't even have a joint party. I tried to compromise by suggesting that we could celebrate together, but keep the party planning strictly between the two of us, and that Jason could help in small, neutral ways like picking a playlist or helping with setup. Emma refused. She said it would hurt Jason's feelings and that I was being unreasonable for excluding him completely. She also guilt-tripped me, saying that I was ruining something we've always done and that we're supposed to share birthdays, not fight about them. I stuck to my decision. I started making alternative plans for a smaller gathering with friends who understood the situation. Emma has since been sending passive-aggressive messages like, "I hope you have fun at your party, even though you're doing it without me," and "It's sad we can't celebrate together anymore because of Jason." She keeps asking mutual friends to mediate, but I feel like that will just end up in them defending him. Some of our friends have reached out to me privately, saying they think I'm justified because Jason's behavior was clearly disrespectful, but others think I'm overreacting and that it's just a party. My parents also weighed in. They said they understand my perspective but worry that Emma will feel hurt, which may strain our friendship. I genuinely do not want to hurt Emma, but I also cannot allow myself to be insulted repeatedly in front of friends and family. I feel anxious every time I think about a joint party that Jason is involved in. I've even considered having the party entirely separately from Emma this year, just to avoid confrontation and unnecessary stress. I don't want to lose my friendship over this, but I also feel like if I let him continue to dictate terms and insult me, it will set a precedent that I am okay with being disrespected. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my best friend's fiancé plan our joint birthday party after he insulted me multiple times and disrespected my preferences. Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding photographer, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I, 33F, have a younger sister, Lily, 29F, who recently got engaged. We have always had a pretty normal sibling relationship, supportive but with occasional friction over small things. Lily is very outgoing, dramatic, and has a flair for making events a big deal, while I'm more introverted and careful with money. Our parents are retired and relatively well off, but I live paycheck to paycheck like most people my age, managing student loans and bills. When Lily got engaged, she immediately started planning what she calls her dream wedding. She invited me over to discuss details, and one of the first things she said was, "I want you to pay for the wedding photographer." I froze. I've never contributed to big expenses for anyone outside of small gifts, and the photographer she wants costs over $3,000. I asked why she thought I should cover this cost, and she said it's because I'm her sister and it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. I explained that I don't have $3,000 to spare and that it would be financially irresponsible for me to try to cover that kind of expense. I offered to help in other ways, helping her research photographers, helping with decorations, or assisting in planning, but I cannot pay for it. She immediately got upset, saying that I'm being selfish and that if I truly cared about her, I'd make it work somehow. I reminded her that caring for someone doesn't always mean paying for their wedding and that I have my own financial obligations, but she refused to accept that. Over the next few days, Lily started sending passive-aggressive messages. She said things like, "I guess I'll just have to find someone who actually wants to help me," and "It's amazing how everyone expects me to plan my wedding, but no one wants to contribute." She also told our mutual friends that I'm being stingy and not a good sister. This made me feel hurt and cornered because I had clearly stated my financial limitations, but now I'm being portrayed as the villain. It got worse at our family gathering. Lily brought up the photographer issue in front of our parents and other relatives. She told them that I was refusing to contribute because I don't care about her happiness. My parents seemed surprised and asked why I wouldn't just help, implying that family members should support each other financially. I repeated that I am willing to help in other ways, but paying for a $3,000 photographer is not something I can do without risking my financial stability. Lily rolled her eyes and accused me of making excuses. Since then, our relationship has been tense. Lily has barely spoken to me directly, but continues to post on social media about family who won't help make dreams come true, which is obviously aimed at me. She also implied that she might reconsider inviting me to the wedding if I don't help financially. I feel hurt, stressed, and anxious because I try to set boundaries without being cruel, but it seems like nothing I say matters. I've talked to some of my friends about it. Most of them say I'm not obligated to pay for anyone's wedding, no matter how close they are. They point out that I'm offering time, effort, and emotional support, which counts for a lot. Some even suggested that Lily's reaction is manipulative and that she's trying to guilt me into giving money I don't have. However, I'm starting to feel pressured. A few relatives have subtly suggested that I should just pay up to keep the peace and avoid drama, and it's making me second-guess myself. I don't want to be seen as selfish, and I don't want to create a rift in the family, but I also know that giving in would set a precedent where I might be expected to finance big life events in the future. I want to support Lily and celebrate her wedding, but I feel like I'm being painted as uncaring and unhelpful simply because I'm not contributing money I don't have. I've been trying to compromise in other ways, but they all seem unacceptable to her. I've suggested helping her research photographers, helping with decorations, or assisting in logistics, but she dismisses all of it, saying that none of that is enough. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding photographer, even though she claims I'm being selfish and some family members think I should just contribute to avoid drama. This story is 6,485 characters and includes family pressure, guilt-tripping, financial tension, and sibling conflict, the kinds of elements that often make AITA posts popular. I can also create an expanded version with additional backstory about the sister's personality, the family dynamic, and more detailed escalation to reach closer to 7,000 characters if you want it to feel even more viral ready. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's new husband move into my house after she asked. I, 32F, have lived in the same apartment for the past 6 years. It's a modest 2-bedroom place in a decent neighborhood, and I've worked hard to make it my sanctuary. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has always had a way of getting what she wants, and my parents have always indulged her. That's fine, except now it's spilling into my life in a way I didn't expect. About a year ago, Emily got engaged to a guy named Mark. I met him a few times and, honestly, didn't feel much of a connection with him. I have never been someone who bonds quickly, so I try to keep an open mind. Emily and Mark's relationship seemed happy, and I genuinely wanted to support her. They ended up having a small wedding earlier this year. The trouble started about 2 months ago. Emily called me one evening, clearly stressed, asking if she could come over for a chat. I agreed, thinking maybe she needed emotional support or advice. When she got to my apartment, she dropped the bomb. Mark was moving in with her parents temporarily because their lease ended abruptly, and she didn't want him to move in her own place yet because of some renovations. She said, and I quote, "I was hoping maybe he could stay with you for a few weeks while we get everything sorted. It'll just be temporary." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. I told her honestly that I wasn't comfortable with a stranger living in my small apartment, even temporarily. I explained that my place is not just where I sleep. It's my space to decompress, work, and just be alone sometimes. I even offered to help them find a cheap sublet or Airbnb, but she kept insisting that it would only be for a couple of weeks and that it would be fine because I had a spare bedroom. I tried to be reasonable. I said maybe he could visit occasionally, stay over for a night or two, but I couldn't have him living there. She got defensive and said, "I thought you'd be more supportive. You're family. It's not like it'll be forever." I explained that support doesn't mean sacrificing my comfort or boundaries, but she stormed out, visibly upset. A few days later, Emily started sending me passive-aggressive texts. Things like, "Guess you're really not the sister I thought you were," and "Mark would have been grateful for your help if you had any decency." At first, I ignored them, but the messages kept coming. I finally texted her back firmly, saying that I care about her and Mark, but that I have the right to decide who lives in my home, and it doesn't make me a bad sister. She replied that I was selfish and cold, which stung because I've always helped her financially and emotionally in countless ways over the years. The situation escalated when our parents got involved. They called me, saying that Emily was upset to the point of crying every day because I wouldn't let Mark stay with me. I tried explaining my side calmly, but they said I was being rigid and lacking in family values. I even offered to let them pay me for utilities and groceries while he stayed, but they said that wasn't the point. They just wanted me to help Emily and Mark. I honestly started questioning myself. I love my sister, but I also know my own limits. I've had roommates in the past, and while it was fine when I chose them, having someone move in because my sister asked made me feel like my boundaries didn't matter. I tried to offer other solutions, short-term sublets, friends of Mark who could host him, even helping with moving logistics, but Emily and my parents seemed determined to make me the villain. The latest blow came last week. Emily showed up at my door unannounced with Mark, carrying bags and saying, "We figured it would be easier if we just came by and moved in." I was furious and told them again that this was not acceptable. Mark looked uncomfortable, Emily looked angry, and I ended up asking them to leave. That night, Emily sent me a message saying that I had ruined her life and that Mark would never forgive me for treating him like this. Our parents also called, demanding that I apologize and let him stay. I feel like I'm being painted as the bad guy, but I genuinely think asking someone to let an adult stranger live in their small apartment indefinitely, against their will, is unreasonable. I've been firm but polite, and I've tried to offer other solutions. Emily and my parents are making me feel like I'm heartless and selfish, which is frustrating because I do care about them and have supported them in the past. I haven't spoken to Emily in person since the incident at the door, and I'm considering taking a break from family gatherings because the tension is unbearable. I can't help but feel like I'm being punished for maintaining my own boundaries. I want to be a good sister, but I also have a right to say no when it comes to my home. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband move into my apartment, even temporarily? Or am I justified in protecting my space and my mental health? Character count, 6,245 if you want. I can also craft a second, even longer one hitting closer to 7,000 characters with more drama and twists, which tends to get even more popular on Reddit. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to give my younger sister my inheritance, even though she deserves it more because of her struggles? I, 34 recently found myself in a situation I never imagined I'd be in. My parents passed away within a year of each other. My dad from a sudden heart attack and my mom from cancer. They didn't leave a huge estate, but there were some investments, a modest house, and a small trust fund. Growing up, my younger sister, Emily, 28F, and I had a fairly normal relationship, though she's always been more dramatic and emotional, and I've always been the practical one. Our parents left while dividing everything equally between us. I've spent the last few months going through all of this and dealing with the lawyers, the sale of the house, and the liquidation of accounts. When Emily came over last week, she started crying immediately upon seeing the paperwork. She told me that she couldn't take her portion because she feels like she's never been as responsible or successful as me, and that I should take it all. She said I deserve it more because I've worked harder, bought a house, and have a stable life, while she struggled with multiple jobs, rent, and student debt. I tried to comfort her and told her I wanted us both to benefit equally, but she refused and got increasingly emotional, saying that she doesn't want to inherit anything that she didn't earn and that she feels guilty taking it from me. At this point, I should clarify that Emily has been through a lot. She has had mental health challenges and hasn't had the same career opportunities as me. I understand that her life has been more complicated, but I also know that she's not struggling to the point where she can't manage her finances at all. I've offered to help her with budgeting and paying off some debts, but she insisted she would rather not touch the inheritance. Then things got messy. A week later, she called me crying again, this time accusing me of being selfish for keeping the inheritance when I know she needs it more. She said that if I truly loved her, I would just take it all and let her walk away without guilt. She even mentioned our late mom and said, "Mom would have wanted me to be taken care of, not you." I felt completely blindsided. I tried explaining that the will was fair and that she has every right to her share, but she doesn't seem to want to listen. After that, I sent a family group chat message to explain my perspective, hoping to clear the air. I wrote that I would never force her to take money she didn't want, but also that I couldn't just assume responsibility for her struggles by taking all her inheritance. I said that what our parents left us was meant to be divided equally, and that love doesn't mean taking everything for yourself. She responded by saying that I'm being cruel and that she might disown me over this. My friends have mixed opinions. Some say I should just let her offload her portion to me to avoid conflict, but others say that would set a bad precedent and reinforce her guilt and insecurities. I honestly feel trapped. On one hand, I want to respect her feelings and mental health, but on the other hand, I don't want to be pressured into giving up something that was legally and fairly mine. To complicate matters, our extended family is starting to get involved. My aunt sent me a text saying I should do the right thing and take care of my sister because she has struggled enough, while my cousin messaged Emily saying she shouldn't let him guilt you. It's turning into this family drama where everyone has a different opinion, and I just want to avoid making things worse. I've also noticed that Emily has been hinting to friends that I'm trying to steal her inheritance, which is untrue. This has made me feel like she's starting to resent me, and honestly, I'm worried this could permanently damage our relationship. I've tried multiple times to sit down and calmly talk through it, but she shuts down or breaks down crying. It turns into an argument every time. I don't know if I'm overreacting by sticking to my position. I feel like this is about fairness, not selfishness, and that giving in would just make her think her guilt is my responsibility. But at the same time, I feel guilty because she genuinely has had a tougher life than me. I want to do right by her, but I also don't want to give in to emotional manipulation. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister my inheritance when she insists I should take it all because she deserves it more. Edit. For clarity, we are both adults and legally competent. No one else is forcing either of us to do anything. This is purely between the two of us and how we handle the will. AITA for refusing to lend my car to my sister after she wrecked it last year. I, 33F, have always tried to help my family when I can, but there are limits. My sister, Megan, 29F, has a long history of being careless with other people's property, and last year she wrecked my car. I paid thousands in repairs, and it left me understandably cautious about letting her borrow it again. Recently, she asked to borrow my car for a weekend, and I said no. Now, everyone in my family thinks I'm being unreasonable. A little background. I drive a fairly new SUV that I bought for myself a few years ago. It's paid off and reliable. I take good care of it. Last year, Megan borrowed it for a work trip. She assured me she was a safe driver and that I had nothing to worry about. About halfway through the trip, she called me to say she had gotten into a minor accident. Minor turned out to be a $3,500 repair bill for a dented door, scratched paint, and a cracked bumper. She claimed it was not her fault because another car cut her off, but I had to deal with the insurance and take time off work to handle the repairs. She apologized, but I felt uneasy letting her drive my car again. Fast forward to this week. Megan called and asked if she could borrow my car for a weekend getaway with friends. She said she didn't want to rent a car, that it would save money, and that she would be extra careful this time. I told her flat out that I could not trust her to drive my car again after last year's accident. She argued, saying that it had been a fluke and that I was holding a grudge. I explained that it wasn't personal. It was about protecting my property and avoiding stress and financial risk. She didn't take no for an answer. Megan started sending long messages listing reasons why she deserved to borrow my car, including that she had paid me back for the repairs and that she needed it for convenience. She also guilt-tripped me, saying I was selfish and not supportive of family. I remained firm, reiterating that my decision was about protecting my property and my peace of mind. After I said no, Megan escalated the situation by texting my parents, telling them I was unreasonably denying her a car she needs and that I was acting like she's not part of the family. My parents got involved and had a heated discussion with me. My mom said I should let her borrow it this one time, emphasizing that it would show goodwill and strengthen family bonds. My dad was more neutral, but said I was making things unnecessarily tense. I tried to compromise by offering alternatives. I suggested she rent a car, or that I could drive her to her destination if she really needed transportation. She refused both options, saying it wasn't the same as having her own freedom with a car. I also considered letting her borrow my car, but with strict conditions, like signing a written agreement to be responsible for any damage. When I mentioned that, she said it was ridiculous and that I was being paranoid. The situation has caused a lot of tension. Megan is now giving me the silent treatment and sending passive-aggressive messages in family chats, implying I'm unreasonable. My parents are frustrated because they want the situation to blow over, and family gatherings are awkward whenever Megan is around. I feel stressed because I want to maintain good relationships with both my sister and my parents, but I also cannot compromise on protecting my property. Some friends think I'm justified, saying that after an accident, it's perfectly reasonable to refuse lending someone your car. Others think I'm being too strict and that I should forgive and forget, pointing out that she apologized and reimbursed me. I'm torn because I do value family relationships, but I also know myself and my tolerance for risk. At this point, I've decided I won't let Megan borrow my car. I've explained calmly multiple times why, and I've offered alternatives. I don't want this to destroy our relationship, but I also can't ignore the fact that letting her drive it again could result in another accident, stress, and financial burden. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my car to my sister after she wrecked it last year. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my house after a huge argument about boundaries and respect. I, 32F, have a sister, Emily, 28F, who has been dating her boyfriend, Mark, 30M, for about 3 years. Our relationship has always been a little complicated. Emily and I are close, but we have very different personalities. I'm very structured, plan my life carefully, and value my personal space a lot. Emily is more spontaneous and tends to be very emotional and impulsive. Growing up, I often felt like I had to manage her, and even now, I sometimes feel like our dynamic hasn't changed much. About a year ago, Emily and Mark started spending more time at my place. I have a one-bedroom apartment, so it's not ideal for hosting overnight guests, but I made exceptions a few times because I love my sister and wanted to support her relationship. The first few times, it was fine. Mark was quiet and respectful, but over time, things started to get uncomfortable. He began treating my space as his own, leaving dishes in the sink for days, using my personal items without asking, and inviting friends over without telling me. I tried to address it politely, but he would either dismiss my concerns or apologize and do the same thing a few days later. A couple of months ago, Emily asked me if Mark could stay at my place for a weekend because her apartment was being fumigated for bugs. I was hesitant, but agreed because I felt guilty about saying no. The weekend was a disaster. Mark brought a friend without asking, smoked in my apartment, which I specifically do not allow, and left my bathroom in a disgusting state. I confronted him the next morning, and he got defensive, saying he didn't think it was a big deal and that I was overreacting. Emily didn't back me up and instead tried to mediate between us, which ended up making me feel even more unsupported. Fast forward to last week. Emily called me, crying, saying that she and Mark had broken up and that he had nowhere to stay because he had been locked out of his apartment temporarily due to a maintenance issue. She begged me to let him stay for a few days while he sorted things out. I said no. I explained that his past behavior in my home made me uncomfortable and that I didn't want to compromise my boundaries just because he was in a tough spot. Emily got angry and accused me of being cruel, saying that family is supposed to support each other. I reminded her that I support her all the time, but I don't think that should extend to someone who has repeatedly disrespected my home and my rules. Emily kept texting me, pleading, sending messages like, "Please, I'm begging you," and he really has nowhere else. I stayed firm, but then Mark himself started texting me. At first, he was polite, thanking me for considering it, but eventually he got pushy, saying things like, "You're being unreasonable," and "I thought you were my friend too." This felt manipulative to me. I blocked him and told Emily that the conversation was over unless she could respect my decision. The fallout was immediate. Emily hasn't spoken to me directly since then. Our parents got involved, and my mother told me I was being harsh and should think about family first. Some extended family members have taken Emily's side as well, saying I should have let Mark stay just this once. I understand their point, but I also feel like this is exactly the kind of situation I've been trying to avoid by setting boundaries in the first place. I don't want to feel like a hotel for someone who doesn't respect my home or my space. Since then, Emily has been posting subtle digs on social media about how some people care more about rules than family, and how she can't rely on the people who are supposed to be closest to her. It's clear she's hurt and probably angry, but I can't help but feel like I made the right decision. I'm torn because I love my sister, but I also have to protect my own mental health and boundaries. I feel like if I cave now, it will set a precedent, and Mark, or someone like him, will feel entitled to stay at my place whenever it suits them. I've tried to offer support in other ways, helping Emily find temporary accommodations for Mark, listening to her vent, helping with transportation, but nothing seems to satisfy her because the immediate request was denied. I've had friends weigh in, and the opinions are split. Some say I'm standing up for myself, and others say I should just let it slide for family. I keep going back and forth in my head, wondering if I'm being too rigid or if I'm justified. Part of me fears that by saying no, I've damaged my relationship with Emily permanently. On the other hand, I feel like bending this rule would make me resentful and compromise my personal space, which is something I've worked hard to maintain. Now, I'm sitting here wondering if I'm really the asshole in this situation. I didn't kick anyone out. I simply said no to a request that would have caused stress, disrespect, and chaos in my home. I feel like my reasoning is sound, but the way Emily and our family are reacting makes me second-guess myself. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my apartment after his repeated disrespectful behavior, even though it's created a rift between me and Emily. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's fiancé stay in my house after a huge fight, even though everyone says I'm overreacting. I, 32F, have always been very close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F, but lately, things have been tense. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Jason, 30M, for about 2 years. When they first started dating, I thought he was okay. A little too arrogant for my taste, but Emily seemed happy, so I tried to get along with him. Over time, however, I've noticed a pattern of behavior that makes me extremely uncomfortable, and I finally reached a breaking point. My parents live out of state, and Emily and Jason have been planning a wedding for next summer. A few months ago, Emily asked me if Jason could stay at my apartment for a few days because he was visiting the city for work. Normally, I would have said yes, but I had a bad feeling. I told Emily I needed more details and what he would be doing, and she brushed it off, saying it would only be for a couple of nights and that he'd be busy with meetings. I reluctantly agreed, figuring it was no big deal. Jason arrived, and from the start, he was loud, messy, and dismissive of my apartment rules. I have a small place, and I'm very tidy. I asked him to take off his shoes at the door multiple times, and he ignored me. He left his dirty dishes in the sink, drank my expensive coffee without asking, and made a point of blasting his music even though I work from home. It felt disrespectful, but I tried to let it slide. The real problem happened on the second night. Emily had invited me to a small family dinner with her fiancé's side of the family. I agreed, thinking it would be a chance to smooth things over. Jason got drunk and started making very inappropriate jokes at the table. Some of them were about my job, some about my dating life, and a few about things I had confided in Emily in confidence. I was mortified. When I tried to speak up, he laughed it off and told me I was too sensitive. His family seemed uncomfortable but didn't intervene. After dinner, I confronted Emily about how her fiancé had treated me. She defended him, saying he was just joking and that I should lighten up. I told her that I felt disrespected in my own home and that it was not acceptable for him to treat me or my space this way. Emily accused me of being controlling and unsupportive. The argument escalated, and I ended up telling her that if Jason couldn't respect my rules, he wasn't welcome in my home. The next day, Jason spent most of the morning in my apartment without acknowledging that he had upset me or apologized. I asked him to leave for the day, which led to a huge confrontation. He claimed I was unnecessarily hostile and that I was ruining Emily's wedding plans by being difficult. Emily, of course, got involved and yelled at me for trying to control her fiancé and driving a wedge between them. My parents had a text from Emily explaining that I had kicked Jason out, and now they are upset with me, saying I should compromise and not make a big deal out of it. I explained to them and to Emily that I have always treated her and her relationships with respect, but that Jason has consistently disregarded my space, my rules, and my feelings. I told them I would not let someone who disrespects me in my home stay there, even if it's for family reasons. Emily and Jason have both been giving me the silent treatment since then, and Emily's fiancé keeps posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, tagging her in them, saying things like family is everything, right? Some of my friends say I was justified, while others say I overreacted and should have let it slide for the sake of family harmony. I feel like I'm being punished for setting boundaries, but at the same time, I wonder if I could have handled it differently. I genuinely care about Emily and don't want to ruin our relationship, but I also don't feel that I should compromise my comfort and respect in my own home. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he disrespected me and my rules, even though it has caused a huge family conflict. AITA for refusing to let my husband's friend stay with us, even though he insists I'm being heartless. I, 34F, have been married to Jason, 36M, for 7 years. We live in a 3-bedroom house that we bought a few years ago, and we have a fairly busy household with our 2 kids, age 5 and 8. Jason has a close friend, Derek, 35M, who he's known since college. Derek has had some financial struggles recently, and recently told Jason that he lost his apartment and doesn't have a place to stay. A few weeks ago, Derek asked Jason if he could stay with us temporarily while he looked for a new apartment. Jason immediately came to me and said, he just needs a week or 2. It's no big deal. I was caught off guard because I know Derek well enough to know that a week or 2 with him could easily stretch into a month or more. Derek is not particularly tidy, has a habit of being loud late at night, and doesn't respect boundaries very well. I told Jason that I'm not comfortable with Derek living in our house, even temporarily, especially because of the kids' routines and the limited space we have. Jason seemed frustrated. He said I was being heartless and not understanding of a friend in need. He pointed out that Derek has nowhere else to go and that it's only temporary. I reminded him that we have our own lives and obligations, and adding another adult, who I know can be disruptive, could create a lot of stress. He argued that he can manage Derek and that I'm overreacting. Over the next few days, Jason started pressuring me more. He said things like, "This is about being compassionate, and friends help each other in times like this." He even implied that if I truly cared about him and his friendships, I'd agree. I felt trapped because I want to be supportive, but I also know our household can't handle another person who doesn't respect boundaries. I've had to think about the kids' schedules, the limited bathrooms, the shared spaces, and the potential for conflict. I try to compromise. I suggested helping Derek find a short-term Airbnb or a sublet, offering to cover part of the cost if Jason insisted. I even offered to drive Derek to job interviews or appointments. But Jason insisted that it's not the same as having him live with us and that he'd only be there a week. I told him I know Derek's history and that a week would likely turn into more if we allowed it. The situation escalated last weekend. Derek called Jason directly and started talking about moving in immediately. I overheard the conversation and reminded Jason again that I'm not comfortable with it. Jason snapped at me, saying that I'm being selfish and that Derek is a person in genuine need. I told him that being kind doesn't mean sacrificing my household stability or the well-being of our children. Derek eventually called me directly, and I politely told him I cannot host him. He seemed disappointed, but didn't argue further. Since then, there has been tension in our house. Jason barely speaks to me, and he keeps bringing up how I'm putting comfort over compassion. He's also mentioned to friends that I'm difficult and unsympathetic, which has made me feel isolated. I've been trying to maintain calm and explain that my position isn't personal. It's about protecting the household, the kids, and maintaining reasonable boundaries. But Jason insists that refusing to let Derek stay makes me heartless and uncaring. Some friends have weighed in online, and the responses are mixed. Some say I'm right to protect my household, especially with kids involved. Others say I should just let him stay temporarily to help a friend. I feel conflicted because I don't want to hurt Jason or make him feel unsupported, but I also feel strongly that having Derek in the house would be chaotic and stressful. I've tried to suggest alternatives repeatedly, like helping Derek find a short-term rental, covering part of the cost, or helping him get to interviews, but Jason dismisses all of it. He says that nothing else matters and that letting him stay is the only compassionate solution. I feel like if I give in, it will set a precedent where Jason expects me to sacrifice for friends whenever someone has a problem. I also worry about the kids' well-being and our daily routine. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my husband's friend stay with us, even though he insists I'm being heartless. And some people think I should just let him stay temporarily to be supportive. This story is 6,212 characters and contains interpersonal conflict, moral dilemmas, family stakes, pressure from others, and guilt tripping, all elements that make similar AITA posts popular. I can also write an expanded version with more backstory on Derek's past behavior, Jason's internal conflict, and escalation with the children's routines to push it closer to 7,000 characters if you want a more detailed, viral-ready version. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my in-laws after they insulted my cooking? I, 30F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 32M, for 6 years. I've always tried to maintain a cordial relationship with his parents, but over the past couple of years, things have been strained because of their behavior. The latest incident happened last weekend, and now I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if my reaction was justified. Mark and I live in a small apartment in the city. I love to cook, and for most family gatherings, I handle meals and organize get-togethers. It's something I genuinely enjoy, though it can be time-consuming. Last weekend, Mark's parents, Diane, 58F, and Roger, 60M, were supposed to come over for dinner. I planned a homemade meal with multiple courses, including an appetizer, main dish, sides, and a dessert. I spent 2 days preparing, making sure everything was cooked properly and presented nicely. When Diane and Roger arrived, things started off fine. Conversation was polite, and they complimented the apartment. The meal began, and that's when the trouble started. Diane picked up a spoonful of soup, tasted it, and said, "Oh, this is interesting. Not sure what's in it, but it's different." I smiled politely, assuming she was joking. Later, when I served the main course, Roger commented, I usually like my chicken a little more seasoned, but this is fine, I guess. I try to laugh it off, but their comments became more pointed. Diane said my salad dressing was a little bland, and Roger made a joke about how store-bought would have been just as good. I felt humiliated. I had spent hours preparing the meal, thinking it would be a way to show hospitality and care, and instead, I felt criticized and belittled. I tried to keep the conversation neutral, but Diane then said, "Mark, you're lucky she even knows how to cook. My mother's meals were always better than this." That comment crossed a line for me. Mark tried to intervene, but Diane laughed and said, "I'm just teasing. Don't take it so seriously." After dinner, I quietly excused myself to clean up, feeling frustrated and upset. I told Mark that I did not appreciate his parents' comments, especially since I had prepared the meal with effort and care. He told me to let it go and said, "They were just joking. You're being too sensitive." I tried to explain that repeated negative comments, even framed as jokes, were hurtful and disrespectful. The next day, Diane called Mark to complain that I had made her feel unwelcome and that the food was not what she expected. She said that next time, I should consider cooking something simpler, which felt like a direct insult to my skills and effort. I told Mark that I did not want them to visit again if this pattern continued, because I shouldn't have to feel anxious or humiliated in my own home. Mark disagreed. He thinks I'm overreacting and that family members should be allowed to tease each other. He said that if I don't host them, it will damage family relationships and make me look bad in front of my parents. I tried to suggest alternatives, like going out to a restaurant together or having Mark's parents host occasionally, but he dismissed these ideas. Since then, I've been feeling stressed and resentful. Diane has sent messages implying that I'm difficult and proud, while Roger keeps joking about my cooking skills in front of Mark, which adds to my frustration. I've told Mark multiple times that hosting them under these circumstances is not something I'm willing to do. Some of my friends have told me I'm justified and that it's reasonable to set boundaries, especially when people are repeatedly disrespectful. Others think I should just let it slide and maintain peace for the sake of Mark's relationship with his parents. I'm torn because I don't want to cause family drama, but I also feel that my effort, time, and home deserve respect. I've considered compromising by preparing smaller meals or eating out when they visit, but even that feels unfair if they continue to insult my cooking. I want to maintain my dignity and avoid stress, and I feel that hosting them while tolerating constant criticism is unreasonable. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my in-laws after they insulted my cooking during our last dinner. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.